Power is not always about strength. Sometimes it is about awareness. In the real world, not everyone plays fair. Some people manipulate, deceive, and use hidden tactics to gain advantage. If you walk through life expecting everyone to act with honesty, you may eventually find yourself confused and frustrated. This is why thinkers like Niccolo Machiavelli studied human behavior so deeply. His observations were not about becoming cruel or heartless. They were about understanding the reality of how people behave when power, pride, and ambition enter the picture. Many people misunderstand Machiavelli. They think his ideas promote evil or manipulation. In truth, his writings were about awareness. He believed that if you understand the strategies people use, you become harder to deceive and harder to control. In this video, we explore powerful psychological insights inspired by Machiavelli that can help you protect yourself when others try to play dirty. Before we go further, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. Here we explore powerful lessons from philosophy, Stoicism, and timeless thinkers who understood the deeper patterns of human nature. If you want more content that strengthens your mindset and sharpens your awareness, make sure you subscribe and become part of this growing community. One powerful insight from Machiavellian thinking is the importance of emotional control. People who manipulate others often rely on triggering emotional reactions. Anger, fear, embarrassment, and insecurity make people predictable. When you remain calm and observant, you immediately remove one of the manipulator's most powerful tools. Another important psychological principle is learning to observe actions instead of trusting words. Many people are skilled at speaking in ways that sound convincing and sincere. But actions always reveal the true intention behind a person's character. When someone repeatedly says one thing but behaves differently, believe the pattern you see rather than the promises you hear. Machiavelli also believed that perception often shapes reality. People tend to respond not only to what is true but also to what appears true. This does not mean you should become dishonest. Instead, it means understanding that how you present yourself can influence how others treat you. Confidence, calmness, and self-respect often discourage people from attempting manipulation. Another powerful strategy is learning when to remain silent. Silence can be an incredibly strong psychological tool. When someone expects a reaction from you and receives none, it disrupts their expectations. Silence forces the other person to reveal more about their intentions while you remain in control of your emotions. Machiavellian awareness also encourages strategic patience. Many people rush into reactions because they feel pressured or provoked. But patience gives you time to understand the situation more clearly. Often, the person trying to manipulate you will expose their strategy if you simply observe long enough. Another insight is learning to protect your plans. Not every idea or goal needs to be shared with everyone around you. Sometimes the less people know about your intentions, the less opportunity they have to interfere or manipulate the outcome. Machiavelli also observed that people often respect strength more than vulnerability. When you demonstrate confidence, discipline, and self-control, others naturally become more cautious in how they approach you. Strength does not mean aggression. It means stability and clarity in your behavior. Another important psychological approach is understanding that people often reveal their motives through small details. Tone of voice, repeated patterns of behavior, and subtle changes in attitude can reveal much more than words alone. When you become more attentive to these details, manipulation becomes easier to detect. Machiavellian thinking also encourages adaptability. Situations change, people change, and strategies sometimes need to change as well. When you remain flexible and thoughtful, you can adjust your responses rather than reacting automatically. Another powerful idea is learning the difference between kindness and weakness. Kindness is a strength when it comes from choice and confidence. But when kindness comes from fear of conflict or desire for approval, it can invite manipulation. True strength allows you to be kind while still maintaining clear boundaries. Understanding human nature also means recognizing that some people seek advantage wherever they can find it. This does not mean becoming paranoid or distrustful of everyone. It simply means developing awareness so that you are not easily surprised by selfish behavior. Machiavelli often emphasized preparation. When you understand how power dynamics work, you can prepare your responses before difficult situations arise. Preparation reduces emotional reactions and increases strategic thinking. Another psychological advantage comes from controlling the narrative around your actions. When you communicate clearly and confidently about your decisions, it becomes harder for others to twist or misrepresent your intentions. Machiavellian awareness also teaches the importance of choosing your allies carefully. Surrounding yourself with trustworthy and thoughtful people reduces the chances of manipulation and conflict. Another valuable principle is learning to walk away from situations that are built on dishonesty or constant conflict. Sometimes the most strategic move is simply refusing to participate in games designed to drain your energy. Understanding power dynamics also means recognizing when someone is testing your boundaries. Small acts of disrespect or manipulation are often used to see how you will respond. When you calmly enforce your boundaries early, these tests often stop quickly. Machiavellian insight also reminds us that reputation matters. A reputation for calmness, fairness, and intelligence can discourage many forms of manipulation before they even begin. Another important lesson is learning to ask thoughtful questions. Questions encourage others to reveal their thinking while you remain in control of the conversation. Observing patterns over time is another powerful strategy. A single mistake may mean little, but repeated behavior reveals true character. When you pay attention to patterns, you develop a clearer understanding of the people around you. Machiavellian thinking also encourages strategic thinking rather than emotional reaction. When you respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively, you gain an advantage in almost any interaction. Another insight is learning to remain unpredictable in your reactions. Manipulators often rely on predicting how someone will respond. When your reactions remain calm and thoughtful, their strategies become less effective. Machiavelli also understood the importance of timing. Saying the right thing at the wrong time can weaken your position, while waiting for the right moment can strengthen your influence. Another powerful principle is protecting your mental energy. Not every conflict deserves your attention. Some arguments exist only to distract and exhaust you. Machiavellian awareness also encourages long-term thinking. Instead of focusing only on immediate reactions, consider how your actions will influence future situations. Another lesson is learning to separate emotions from strategy. When emotions take control, strategy disappears. When strategy remains calm, emotions become easier to manage. Understanding human nature also means accepting that trust should be built gradually. When trust grows slowly through consistent actions, it becomes much stronger. Machiavellian insight also reminds us that influence often comes from subtlety rather than force. Calm confidence can be more persuasive than loud arguments. Another powerful habit is learning from every interaction. Every difficult conversation and every challenging situation can teach you something about human behavior. Awareness, discipline, and observation are powerful tools. When you combine these qualities, manipulation becomes easier to recognize and easier to resist. If these ideas are helping you see human behavior more clearly, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Here we explore Stoicism, philosophy, and powerful psychological insights that help you become wiser, calmer, and stronger in everyday life. Stay thoughtful, stay aware, and remember that the greatest advantage in life often comes from understanding how people truly think and behave. Another powerful idea inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli is learning to control the pace of a situation. When someone is trying to manipulate you, they often create urgency. They want you to decide quickly, react quickly, or speak quickly. This pressure is intentional because rushed decisions usually benefit the person applying the pressure. When you slow things down and take your time to think, you immediately weaken their influence. Another psychological strategy is learning to stay emotionally neutral in tense conversations. Some people provoke conflict because emotional chaos gives them control. When they see anger or frustration, they feel they are winning the interaction. But when you remain calm and neutral, the emotional game they're trying to play loses its effect. Machiavellian awareness also teaches the importance of observing how people treat others, not just how they treat you. Many people appear kind and respectful at first, but the true nature becomes visible in how they behave toward those who have less power or influence. When you watch carefully, you begin to see patterns that reveal their real character. Another valuable tactic is learning to respond with questions instead of immediate answers. Questions force the other person to explain themselves more deeply. Often, when someone is trying to manipulate a situation, the more they talk, the more their contradictions become visible. Another psychological insight is understanding that confidence discourages manipulation. People who appear unsure of themselves are often targeted by those who seek control. When you carry yourself with quiet confidence and clarity, many manipulators instinctively look elsewhere for easier targets. Machiavellian thinking also encourages learning from past interactions. If someone has already demonstrated dishonesty, manipulation, or disrespect, it is wise to remember that pattern. Ignoring repeated behavior often leads people into the same problem again and again. Another strategic habit is controlling how much information you reveal. When you speak too openly about your weaknesses, plans, or personal struggles with the wrong people, that information can later be used against you. Wise people share selectively and carefully. Another principle is recognizing when someone is trying to divide people against each other. Creating conflict between individuals is a common manipulation tactic. When you notice this happening, clarity and direct communication can prevent misunderstandings from growing into larger problems. Machiavellian awareness also involves understanding social dynamics. In many situations, influence does not come from authority alone but from relationships and perception. When you build respectful and thoughtful relationships, your position becomes naturally stronger. Another important point is learning not to react to every criticism. Some criticisms are meant to provoke rather than improve. When you ignore provocations and respond only to meaningful feedback, you keep control of your energy and attention. Another psychological advantage comes from maintaining discipline in your behavior. When your actions remain consistent and thoughtful, people learn that you are not easily pushed into emotional reactions. This consistency builds respect over time. Machiavellian insight also teaches the value of calm observation during conflict. Instead of immediately defending yourself, take a moment to watch how the situation unfolds. Sometimes the other person will reveal more than they intended when they believe you are not paying attention. Another powerful lesson is recognizing hidden motives. Not every offer, compliment, or suggestion is purely innocent. When you pay attention to what someone might gain from a situation, you begin to understand the true intentions. Another strategic habit is learning when to disengage completely. Some people thrive on drama and confrontation. When you refuse to participate in these cycles, you protect your peace and deny them the attention they seek. Machiavellian thinking also emphasizes the importance of self-respect. When you respect yourself, you naturally create boundaries that others are less likely to cross. People often treat you according to the standards you demonstrate for yourself. Another psychological trick is learning to remain composed under pressure. When others expect you to panic or react emotionally and instead see calm confidence, the balance of power in the interaction changes immediately. Another key insight is recognizing the difference between temporary alliances and true loyalty. Some people support you only when it benefits them. Understanding this reality helps you navigate relationships with greater clarity. Another principle is mastering the art of strategic listening. When you allow others to speak freely without interruption, they often reveal far more information than they intended. Listening carefully can be more powerful than speaking. Machiavellian awareness also reminds us that influence often grows quietly. Loud displays of power sometimes attract unnecessary enemies. Calm competence and steady progress can build influence without creating unnecessary conflict. Another powerful tactic is protecting your reputation through consistent behavior. When people know you as someone who is calm, thoughtful, and fair, it becomes much harder for others to damage your credibility. Another insight is learning to avoid unnecessary explanations. Over-explaining can sometimes weaken your position and create confusion. Clear, simple communication often carries much greater authority. Machiavellian wisdom also teaches the importance of preparation. When you anticipate potential challenges, you can respond with calm clarity instead of emotional surprise. Another lesson is understanding that not every battle needs to be fought immediately. Sometimes patience and observation reveal a better moment to act. Another psychological advantage comes from maintaining independence in your thinking. When you rely too heavily on the opinions of others, your judgment becomes easier to influence. Another powerful habit is reflecting on your own behavior as well. Awareness of others is important, but awareness of yourself is equally valuable. When you understand your own reactions, strengths, and weaknesses, you become much harder to manipulate. Another principle is recognizing that true power comes from self-mastery. When you control your thoughts, reactions, and decisions, you are no longer easily controlled by the actions of others. And finally, remember that the purpose of understanding these ideas is not to become manipulative yourself. The purpose is awareness, protection, and wisdom. When you understand the strategies that exist in the world, you can move through life with greater clarity and confidence. If these insights helped you understand human behavior more deeply, subscribe to this channel for more powerful lessons on philosophy, Stoicism, and psychological awareness. Each video is designed to strengthen your thinking, sharpen your awareness, and help you move through life with wisdom and calm strength.